from Sweden. The Gripen. It was small, it had one engine, it was made by the same people who brought you sensible family cars with big boots and an obsession with safety. The critics, the so-called experts in their shiny suits, took one look and declared it a joke, a toy, a hopelessly outmatched irrelevance in an age of fifth-generation stealth-coated, budget-destroying monsters. It was the aeronautical equivalent of a flat-pack bookcase from IKEA, and everyone assumed it would fall apart at the first sign of trouble. But here's the thing about underdogs. They have a funny way of ignoring the script. A fighter that was smarter, faster on its feet, and armed with a slingshot so clever it could take the giant's eye out before he even knew the fight had started. To understand the Gripen, you have to understand where it comes from. It's Swedish ABBA meatballs, a national policy of being aggressively neutral while simultaneously being prepared to fight like a cornered badger. Sweden's problem, it's right next door to Russia. For centuries that meant living with a nagging fear a very large, grumpy bear might pop over and rearrange your furniture. So you need a military, but you don't have the bottomless pockets of the United States. You have to be clever. You have to be Saab. Most people hear Saab and think of quirky front-wheel drive cars, driven by architects, driven by university professors, cars with the ignition key between the seats. But Saab started life building aeroplanes, not just any aeroplanes, advanced Cold War jets like the Viggen. Sweden couldn't rely on pristine 10,000-foot runways. Those bases would be turned into smoldering craters. So, Saab designed Gripen to operate from anywhere, a stretch of frozen road, a forgotten rural highway, a forest clearing. It had to be refueled and rearmed by a handful of conscripts with frozen fingers in under 10 minutes, using little more than a truck, a wrench. That philosophy shaped every single nut and bolt of the Gripen. They built a tool, simple, elegant, lethally effective. Now let's talk about the other guy, the F-35 Lightning II. If the Gripen is a surgeon's scalpel, the F-35 is a hammer. A glorious, earth-shatteringly expensive, diamond-encrusted, platinum-handled hammer. It is the single most expensive weapons program in the history of mankind. You could buy a fleet of solid gold aircraft carriers for what this thing has cost. The F-35 is not just a fighter jet, it is a statement of intent. It is America planting its flag on the peak of Mount Technology and bellowing, "We are the best, and don't you forget it." And on paper, it's hard to argue. The F-35 is a flying supercomputer. Its defining feature is stealth. It's designed to be practically invisible to enemy radar, a ghost in the machine that can slip through the most advanced air defenses undetected. Its pilot wears a helmet that costs more than a Ferrari, a $400,000 piece of kit that lets them see through the floor of their own aeroplane. It's packed with sensors that fuse together so much data from the battlefield that the pilot becomes less of a pilot and more of a sky god, seeing everything, everywhere, all at once. It is, without a doubt, a technological marvel. It was designed to be the one jet to rule them all. It's the Swiss Army knife of fighter jets. And sometimes what you really need is a proper knife. The result was a machine that was eye-wateringly complex. It became a lumbering giant, so precious and expensive that nations were almost afraid to use it. So, how does a small one-engine jet from Sweden even begin to challenge a stealthy, all-seeing American behemoth? The answer is simple. You don't play their game. The Swedes knew they could never out-stealth the F-35, and they couldn't outspend it either, so they focused on something else entirely, being smarter. The Gripen's secret sauce isn't a miracle material, and it isn't a death ray. It's a brilliant combo: electronic warfare, data links, and a design philosophy that prioritizes situational awareness and tactical flexibility over brute force. It's not about being invisible. It's about knowing where your enemy is long before they know where you are. At the heart of the Gripen, one of the most advanced electronic warfare suites ever fitted to a fighter. Think of it as a cloak of invisibility for radio waves. While the F-35 hides in its shape, the Gripen actively fights back. It can jam enemy radar, blind their sensors, and create phantom targets. Those tricks turn an enemy pilot's screen into a confusing mess. While the F-35 pilot hunts for the real blip, The Gripen has already fired and is heading home. Meatballs waiting. Then there's the data link. A squadron of Gripens acts as one coordinated organism. It's a shell game at Mach 2. A thinking man's fighter, built to outwit, not overpower. For years the debate was, well, purely theoretical. Just a bunch of analysts arguing over computer models and, classified data sheets. The Gripen was clever, sure, but could it really survive in a sky full of fifth-generation predators? The answer came, not in a real war, but honestly in the next best thing, the United States Air Force's own red flag exercise. This is the ultimate playground for fighter pilots, a massive simulated air war held right over the Nevada desert. And in 2013, the little Swedish Gripen was, well, invited to play. The Americans and their NATO allies brought their finest toys. F-15S, F-16S, F-22 Raptor, the F-35's even more fearsome big brother. The stage was set for the Gripen to be swatted from the sky like some annoying fly. The reports that trickled out, however, told a very different story. The Gripen wasn't just surviving, it was actually thriving. Using its advanced electronic warfare systems and brilliant data links, those Swedish pilots were running rings around their opponents. They were popping up where they weren't expected, killing advanced fighters and then just vanishing back into the electronic ether. Then came the bombshells. In simulated combat scenarios, the Gripen was achieving staggering kill ratios against more advanced, heavier fighters. But honestly, the most electrifying rumors were about encounters with the F-35 itself. The Gripen had proven that in the chaos of a real dogfight, brains, agility, and a well-aimed slingshot could still beat the biggest, most expensive hammer in the world. Let's talk about the one thing that politicians and generals secretly care about more than anything else: money. This is where the Gripen doesn't just beat the F-35, it delivers a knockout blow. The cost of the F-35 program is, to use a technical term, completely bonkers. Each jet costs a fortune to buy, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real killer is the cost per flying hour. Keeping an F-35 in the air costs, depending on who you ask, somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 every single hour. Now let's look at the Gripen. The latest Gripen E model costs about half as much to buy as an F-35, but the truly staggering figure is its running cost. The cost per flying hour for a Gripen is estimated to be somewhere around, wait for it, $5,000 to $8,000. That's not a typo. You can fly a Gripen for an entire day, an 8-hour sortie, for roughly the same price as flying an F-35 for 1 hour. It fundamentally changes the entire equation of air power. It's the difference between owning a Bugatti Veyron and a Ford Fiesta. Both will get you to the shops, but only one will leave you with enough money to actually buy any milk. This incredible cost efficiency has a massive tactical advantage. It means you can afford to buy more of them. Quantity has a quality all its own. But more importantly, it means you can afford to fly them. With the Gripen, air forces can afford to train their pilots properly, to let them practice, experiment and push the aircraft to its limits, without a man from the Treasury Department having a heart attack. This is the Gripen's masterstroke. Technology and cost sheets are one thing, but a fighter jet is nothing without the human being strapped inside it. And if you talk to the pilots who have flown both the heavyweights and the Gripen, a fascinating picture emerges. Flying a machine like the F-35 is often described as being a systems manager. You are a cog in a vast, complex network of data, managing sensors and interpreting information presented to you by the jet's powerful computers. It's incredibly capable. But some pilots describe it as feeling sterile, a bit distant. You are commanding a supercomputer, not flying an aeroplane. The Gripen, by contrast, is a pilot's airplane. It's a machine that connects with you. Because it was designed to be so simple to operate and maintain, that same philosophy extends to the cockpit. The interface is famously intuitive, clean and uncluttered. Pilots often say it's the easiest jet to transition to. Everything is where you expect it to be. The jet doesn't fight you, it works with you. This allows the pilot to stop managing the system and start focusing on the mission, on fighting, on thinking, on outwitting the enemy. It becomes an extension of the pilot's own will. There's a real sense of national pride and a deep-seated emotional connection among the Swedish pilots who fly it. They aren't just flying a piece of military hardware, they are flying a symbol of their country's ingenuity and independence. The transformation of the Gripen's reputation has been nothing short of spectacular. For years, it was dismissed by the big players in the global arms market. The sales pitches were always dominated by Lockheed Martin, Boeing, or the European consortium behind the Typhoon. Saab was the quiet kid in the corner that nobody paid much attention to. The successes at Red Flag and the steady drip of positive reports from exercises began to change that. People who mattered, Air Force chiefs, defense ministers, and tactical experts, started to sit up and take notice. The punchline was starting to look like a powerhouse. The first big crack in the dam was Brazil. The South American giant had a long, drawn-out competition to replace its aging fighter fleet. America's F-18 Super Hornet, France's Rafale, and the Gripen. But Brazil did the maths. They looked at the performance, they looked at the technology transfer being offered by the Swedes, and most importantly, they looked at the lifetime running costs. In a shock decision, they chose the Gripen. It was a massive vote of confidence and a huge black eye for the establishment. Suddenly, the Gripen was no longer a niche European product. It was a serious global contender. Other countries followed suit. The Czech Republic and Hungary chose to lease Gripens, finding them to be a perfect, cost-effective way to meet their alliance commitments. South Africa and Thailand also became operators. Each sale was a testament to the Gripen's core appeal. It offered 80% of the capability of the mega fighters for 20% of the cost. The Gripen became a symbol of smart defense. Experts who once scoffed were now writing articles praising its clever design and forward-thinking architecture. The narrative had completely flipped. The world had finally woken up to what the Swedes knew all along. So, what have we learned from this epic tale of David and Goliath played out in the skies with billion-dollar machines? The story of the Gripen versus the F-35 is more than just a story about aeroplanes. It's a powerful lesson in innovation, humility, and the danger of judging a book or a fighter jet by its cover. The world was so dazzled by the F-35's stealth, its power, and its price tag that it completely failed to see the quiet, devastating genius of the Swedish approach. It's the classic mistake. Everyone was looking at the brawn and they missed the brain. The Gripen teaches us that constraints are often the mother of invention. Sweden didn't have unlimited money or resources, so Saab was forced to be clever. They couldn't afford to build a giant, so they built a giant killer. They focused on what really matters in a fight: information, speed, agility, and the ability to keep fighting. They designed a system, not just a jet. They valued efficiency and reliability over raw, brute force power. It's a lesson that extends far beyond the military. In business, in engineering, in life. Sometimes the cleverest solution is also the simplest. And what of Goliath? The F-35 is, without question, a formidable machine. In its intended role, slipping past enemy lines undetected to deliver a precise strike, it is probably unmatched. But its story is a cautionary tale about complexity and cost. It shows what happens when a project becomes too big to fail, when the spec sheet becomes more important than the practical reality of using the thing. Ultimately, the Gripen's triumph is a victory for common sense. It proves that appearances can be profoundly deceiving. The small single-engine jet that everyone laughed at turned out to be one of the most capable, cost-effective and intelligent fighters in the world. And for that, this magnificent little Swedish wonder deserves nothing but our absolute respect.